Hello, I'm John Conrad. Today we're going to discuss how to find the best real estate agent for your situation and then also how to negotiate the best rates. I think in order to do that, it's important to understand how someone becomes an agent and then also what the agent's role is in the overall transaction. So first off, let's start with how someone becomes an agent. They're usually licensed through a state, and so each state's requirements vary, but it's overall pretty much the same. So first of all, people have to have a high school education. Next, they have to pass an ethical or a morality background check. And finally, they have to have an educational course. Now, usually this is about 90 to 135 hours. And then that's followed with an examination and then the payment of a license fee. That's all it takes to become an agent. Then once someone's an agent, they join with another person called a managing agent. And also you can hear a broker. They can be managing brokers. It's the same thing. And what a managing broker is really just an agent that's paid an additional fee, maybe taken some additional courses, and then another additional exam. And what this entitles them to do is to manage the agents under them. So it's important to understand the relationship between the agent and the managing broker. And it really depends on the circumstances, and it varies widely. Sometimes you can have a flat fee, so the agent will simply pay the managing broker a flat fee, and then they're entitled to the entire commission, and I'll discuss commissions later on. Or they'll agree to split their commission with the managing broker. Now, new agents don't have much negotiation power, so they might only get 30 or 40% of the commission split. On the other hand, a very high producing agent can get somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 or 90% of the cut, so it really varies. And another thing to note is, if you have a very large brokerage, a Remax or another very big name, usually it's not too much negotiation involved. They basically say, here's the deal, and people either take it or they don't. With the smaller brokerages, there's a lot more negotiation. So when you're looking for a broker, if you want to negotiate something with someone, usually you're going to have to look to that smaller brokerage. And that's just because they have more flexibility themselves to negotiate with the managing broker, and therefore they're going to be likely to negotiate with you. If they have a set fee schedule, and many large brokerages do, they're not going to negotiate much either because they can't, or they really aren't receiving that much money in the end to be able to give to you. So I think it's important to understand how the sales commission works on a real estate transaction. And what happens is the seller engages the listing agent. Usually they pay in the neighborhood of 5 to 6% to list their home. But that 5 or 6% doesn't only go to the listing agent. Within the agreement, it also specifies how much goes to the buyer's broker. Usually this split's about 50%. Sometimes it goes a little bit higher to the buyer's broker. And I think it's important to understand a buyer's broker will always tell their clients, I don't charge you anything. I only charge the seller. Now this is technically correct because if you look at that last transaction I just explained, what happens is when there's a sale, the seller is essentially paying the listing agent and then the other buyer's broker through that transaction. But I think in reality, that's not really what happens. Clearly, the seller's looking at the net sales price that they take home. If they didn't have to pay the buyer's broker 2.5%, they certainly would accept an offer lower than the one that you'd have to provide. Remember, as the buyer, you're the person bringing money to the table. So you're definitely paying that buyer's broker, and don't be mistaken that you're not. So let me also discuss kind of the roles of the various agents. Now I won't go through specifically the entire transaction, but really the major roles of what an agent does is one, they determine what's a good value for that home. And then with the other agent on the other side, they're going to negotiate as close and as best of deal that they can receive for you. They'll also kind of oversee the transaction to make sure it goes through. They're not that involved in actually doing a lot of the work that's going on behind the scenes, but they're making sure that the parties that do that work, the inspector, the appraiser, that kind of work, is being done on time and pushing to make sure that transaction goes through. A lot of times after an inspection, there are issues, and then the agents will negotiate the best way to resolve that issue. Now, a lot of people use this as a time to negotiate a lot more money at the table. I personally think it's a little foolish. You come in with your best offer and really negotiate the price up front. Once you're at the inspection range, I mean, yes, there's going to be a few $100s here or there, but start thinking about the big dollars when you make an offer. Make an offer that's solid up front, and don't worry about the few $100s that are going to be negotiated during the inspection period. I think a lot of people get too caught up in the fact that they're going to get a few $100s or a few $100s there, when really where the real money savings are in the initial offer. Are you making a good offer? And that's what a buyer's broker really becomes invaluable, because they're going to kind of guide you to say, here's the best range of prices. Now, is there an absolute price for a home? There's not. And I think a lot of people, again, get confused of saying, what's this property worth? Well, it's impossible to say. All properties are different, all situations are different, so there's not an exact price. But you should get in a pretty good range and know what that value of a home is within a good range. And once you're within that range, you really want to lock in and then buy that home. On the other side of the sale, you have the listing agent. Now, their job is really to give the seller a good price where they believe that the home can be sold. And this is also, I think, where a little bit of some of the more dishonest agents step in. Sometimes what they'll do is they'll tell people a very high price. That gets them excited that they're going to sell their home. So they'll list the sale of the home with that agent. They won't see too much success because the price is simply too high. And I probably think the agent knows it's too high, with the idea then that they'll negotiate with the seller to lower their price and then sell it at a price that they expect. Now, I don't think this is an honest practice, but it's one thing when you're looking at hiring a broker. Make sure that whatever price they're giving you that they're going to list it at first for is reasonable. Now, again, as I said earlier, there's no exact price, but if you're within 3 or 4% of what you think is fair, that's a good thing. If you're 10 or 15% higher, you're not going to sell the house. Your house is going to sit on the market. That doesn't look good. And in the end, you're really going to get a lot less money than if you just listed it for the right price in the beginning. So now you've seen what the basic commission structure is with the brokers and the general idea of what brokers do. So how can you use this? Well, a lot of people think that brokers are overpaid, and sometimes that's true and sometimes it's not. So let me explain, and then maybe you can see where you fit in on the deal. Let's say you're looking to buy a property, but you're not really sure where, you're not that much of in a hurry, and you want to see everything, and you also want to put in a lot of low offers and hope that a seller is desperate enough to sell it, you get a great price, and you'll be happy. So what do you do here? Well, the buyer's broker then is going to have to go to a lot of showings in order to finally find the home that you want. They're also going to have to write a lot of offers. Remember, they don't get paid until you actually close on a transaction. I've heard some brokers that have gone up to 100 different homes, made dozens of offers, and never had any success with a client. So when you're paying a buyer's broker, part of their fee is paying for these people who are indecisive and writing all these low offers. What's important to a buyer's broker is to close a transaction after relatively few showings and not have to write a lot of offers. So I think when you're negotiating with a buyer's broker, you need to be very honest with yourself and honest with them. When you're negotiating a rate, and again, you're probably going to have to go to a smaller broker, make sure that you say, I'm going to buy quickly and decisively. I'm pre-approved for this amount, here's the proof, or I have cash to buy. And that's really going to be an incentive to the broker to say, okay, this person's really going to buy a house soon. I'm not going to have to go to 20 different listings. And that's in fact why I became a broker myself. I was tired of paying a very high commission. I mean, sometimes on deals, I usually see between 3 to 5 homes before making an offer on a property. Well, the broker who I hired was basically making $5,000 to $10,000 for literally showing 3 homes and writing an offer. That's all they did. That's a lot of money for that little amount of work. Now, they might have been showing someone else 100 homes and then never even closing on a transaction and not being paid. But I saw no reason for me to pay for that other person who's indecisive. So as you go around, don't just call one broker and say, will you do this deal? Really look around. Brokers from smaller brokerages will negotiate. I started my own brokerage, and now I have a low flat fee that I charge people who are very decisive and know that they want. I'll show them, 3 to 5 homes, and then have an offer written. Now, if they want to see a lot more homes, or they're not decisive, they're probably better with someone else. But if they know they want to be decisive, then I'm happy to take a smaller check and give them some of the commission, because I know that my work is going to be a lot less. So really look for that kind of person. Call around. There's literally tens of thousands of brokers out there. You can always find a broker who's going to be willing to do this. So now let's look at the other side of the transaction. When you're looking to sell a property, you're going to need to engage a listing agent. Now, I've tried to sell a property for sale by owner, and frankly, it just doesn't work. I wish it did, but the system is still too much in favor of the current brokerage system. And why that is because so many buyers brokers will simply refuse to show for sale by owner properties. Now, they might kind of justify it to themselves of, well, if I have to deal with the property owner, it's a lot more work for me because they don't know what they're doing, so I'm not going to put in that extra effort. I'd find this pretty unethical, but that's the way the system works. I think in reality what it is the buyer's brokers are also selling brokers on many other transactions, and they know that if the for sale by owner business starts to take off, they'll lose a significant part of their own income, so they don't do it. It's wrong, but that's the system we have. So really what you're going to need to do is find a broker who's willing to list your home for a lower percentage. As I noted, there is importance to experience, but really getting your property out on the market and out on what's called the MLS, and that's the real estate system that spreads the information about your property being for sale to all the other agents and to the public at large. You want to make sure that your house gets on that. It is important not just to be on Zillow or Realtor.com, but put it on the MLS, because that's where the agents are going to look. That also tells many of the buyer broker in the bottom what their percentage of the commission will be. And that's very important to them. So I know for a fact that a lot of them will look right at that and say, well, it's 2.5% good. Sometimes people even put in incentives, like if you close by this date, you get another $5,000 bonus. And that stuff shouldn't work, but it really does. So what I would look for if you're trying to sell your property, look for a listing agent who will agree to take a commission of between maybe 1 or 1.5%. There's quite a few on the market now. But also realize that when they say 1 to 1.5%, that's only the commission for that listing agent. You still will have to pay the traditional commission to the buyer's broker, and that'll be about 2.5%. So overall, you're still paying 4.5% in order to get the deal done. That's just the way the system works. Hopefully over time, those fees will keep coming down. But until then, just try to negotiate the lowest rates possible and make sure that your house is being presented in a manner that you want it to. Stay on top of your agent to make sure that your best light and the property is being shown in the best way and ethically shown. So I hope these help. I hope you can understand the system a little bit better, and then that helps you to negotiate a better rate with either the buyer's broker or the listing agent for your property. Until next time, if you have any questions or comments, please enter them below. Thank you.